Hi, I'm Gary Openall, and in this video I want to share with you something that's been very, very useful in our organization, and that's called the S model of leading people in successful organizations. On this graphic, note that on this axis, the dependence on supervision and systems. So the higher you are on this axis, the more you are dependent on supervision and systems. On this axis, we have competence and creativity. The farther you are along this axis, the more competent and creative you are in your role in the organization. Certain roles and certain people have these attributes, and this is what makes the model useful. So let's go through each one. S1. S1 means I require supervision. And S1 will say, okay, now what do you want me to do? Okay, now what do you want me to do? Okay, now what do you want me to do? Well, let me give you a broader vision of what we're trying to accomplish in this organization. Now, just tell me what you want me to do next. And S2 is your people who are systematic. The systematic people, while they don't necessarily relate to the overall vision of the organization, it's great if they can, they're the ones who can run a weekly payroll. Okay? Inputs to the system, outputs to the system happens every week. There's a system in place, a process. They can learn the process, and they get better and better at it as they go along. The S3s are the people who can solve problems that occur while you're turning the crank on your organization and your systems. They're the people that when something perturbs the system, they can say, okay, I know how to solve that problem. I can solve that problem today. Your S4s, which are way down the supervision and dependence curve on supervision and systems, are the people who can write your systems, adapt your systems for those things that happen, the problems that occur, and change the systems and improve the systems constantly. And they're the ones that can help you implement the strategies. Okay? The S5s are the people who are the visionaries. They're the people who come up with the strategies. They're the people who have the long view of the company. They're the people who understand what those overall goals and mission and values of the company are and what that means in the community. So, how is this useful? Well, if you think about it, an S1 only thinks about what's in front of them on their desk today. And S2, again, a week-long view. They're the people who see, okay, I turn the crank this week on payroll, and next week I'm going to do the same thing over and over again. And S3, okay, they can provide solutions when those things happen. They have more of a 30-day view about. And S4, about a one-year view. They understand the goals of the company for this year. And S5, they're the 3 to 5 year out thinkers, visionaries that know where the company's going. So, here's some issues that happen that this model reveals. One, S4s and S5s don't like to be constrained by systems and processes. So they don't understand why anybody would, and they're loath to write the systems and processes. They don't understand necessarily the necessity because they themselves don't like them. But guess what? The S1s and S2s require a system. If I don't have a script, these are the people that say, well, I haven't been trained, right? They need a script. They need a process. They need a procedure, or else their heads spin off. Whereas an S4 or an S5, if you constrain them too much with processes and procedures, they're like, well, wait a minute, didn't you hire me to think and be creative? I don't like that. You'll lose S4s and S5s if there's too much clampdown and too much processes. Okay? So it's very important to understand that these folks need processes and scripts and those kinds of things in place, whereas these folks feel constrained by them, number one. Number two, the really useful thing of this is to say, what is this role in this organization right now? Is it kind of an S2 role, an S4 role? What role do we have? In other words, a manager of an organization with P&L responsibilities, well, they better be at least an S4, right? Whereas maybe a billing person could be an S1 or an S2. A billing supervisor better be an S3. Let me give you a real-time example of this. In home care, we have this role called a scheduler. We initially thought a scheduler could be an S1 or an S2, pretty much an S2. An S2 is somebody who can, okay, take the clients, take the caregivers, match them, fill out a schedule on a very easy-to-use software. S2, right? Wrong. Schedulers are constantly dealing with problems. Problems with caregivers, problems with clients, problems with scheduling, problems that come up on a day-to-day basis. If they're not solutions-oriented people, they're freaked out, stressed out, they take that stress out on everybody else, they're unsuccessful, unhappy, and it doesn't lead to a good end. So we figured out that a scheduler role is an S3. Well, that means we better go out and find an S3 to fill that role. Does that make sense? So sometimes, well, I would say I would submit to you always, in any organization, if you've got a mismatch between what the role is and what the person's competency, creativity, dependence on systems is, that's where you have your problems. So if you can map out all the roles in your organization and all the people and what they are, and mix and match and move people around to put the right people in the right slots and the right roles based on their strengths and where they are on the S model curve, you will have a successful organization. So this has been a brief introduction. There will be more and more on this in different videos on the individual ones and where the competencies lie and where the accountability lies, and also whether someone is a plus or a minus. In other words, they're staying where they are, they're neutral, and they're happy to stay there forever, or they might be an S5 and an S1 role early on, and they're just a plus, 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 plus through the system. That is all later. This was just an introduction. Hope you enjoyed it.